we know how important land ownership is.
Yeah.
And for us, it's going to be important that we start to pile our resources together and build networks where we share that, whether that's thinking, creatively about how community land trust can look or other methods. We have to start developing methods because bureaucracy is not going to help us.
That's
That's not their intent. I think the city of Seattle, I feel like, has a vision of growing wider and wealthier. Whether they want to admit that or not, when you look at how the policies are unfolding, that's the trajectory, right?
No, and that's something. When you brought up kind of like Skyway and White Center, and wanting to get ahead of the game in a sense, right? Part of me wants to maybe you can school us on this, but like, let's say they did do that, right? Would they ultimately have to get it signed off by the city, or wouldn't the city ultimately have to sign off on it so they can kind of stop it there if they wanted to?
I think I really deeply believe in the power of the people and the power of the community to organize. Okay. There's a great group in White Center called the Community Development Association. Celie Savusa runs it. And they've already done a lot of work around this. But one of the things I would love to see both of those neighborhoods do is actually start to develop community land trust organizations that they can help families and homeowners start to get into with each other, because those kinds of agreements between community, the city's going to, one, look awful if they try to break that up. Exactly. That's not a good look. Yeah, that's true. But two, are going to have a hard time legally breaking those things. So I think it's actually really important that we find ways to organize as community to start building those shared economic relationships with each other, because collective economics is really the only way we're going to be able to thrive as a community, right? We're taught gross individualism here, but even if you look globally, communities that survive on collectivism. Yeah. So, the city could do some things, but realistically, those areas are both unincorporated right now. There's a lot of community organizers that work in those areas, and some focus on economic development could really benefit families there.
Wow. Damn. Well, you heard it here first, or maybe it's not first. Hopefully it's not first.
Hopefully not first, because that was not a new idea.
I know, right? There's some old shit that y'all should have been on.
Thanks for letting me sound smart.
I agree with that too. I think it is important, and I think we kind of just have to be realistic about, let's just start getting some small victories along the way. Because I feel like, for Black people, it's like, we just want to change overnight, and it's like, it's not going to happen that way. And I think we just continue to get small victory after small victory, and hopefully eventually it'll accumulate to, being able to take control back of what's ours.
Yeah, and part of me tries to believe, though, that a big victory can happen while simultaneously doing the work for the small victories. I think, somebody made a decision along the way that white supremacy was going to rule how this place worked, right? And that's the decision that has continued to impact the space, right? That wealthy folks and men and Christians, that's who's going to get access to stuff. That was a decision that happened.
That's real.
So, when people always tell me, well, Nikkita, change is going to take time, I always say, well, that's a decision you just made. You just made a decision that change is going to take time, right? And while that feels unrealistic, I think sometimes when we're talking about justice and we're talking about thriving, we've got to start using our creativity and our imaginations to set a much higher standard of what change looks like. While working for the small changes to happen, we stay consistent and diligent in doing that work, always keeping a hopeful vision of what it would look like if we woke up tomorrow and there was a big decision like that made, right? Because there have been times when those decisions have happened and they've had a huge impact for a lot of people. Yeah. So it's not an impossibility. It may not be likely, but, I love impossible
I like that, because we talk about
real.
that all the time. It's like, I feel like, not just in this context, but in general, I feel like everybody's going to have their moment at one point in your life. You're going to have an opportunity that's going to be in front of you. And it's like, what have you been doing up until that point to prepare for that so that you can seize that opportunity? So I think you're onto something here. Is just staying diligent, getting those small victories so that when that opportunity to take over overnight, that's just how I want to see it. I just want to see it happen overnight. But when that opportunity does present itself, we'll be well equipped to take it and seize it. That's dope. And